Hi guys, welcome to Boxing Deep Dive. I'm Lynden Hosking, and great to have you along for episode 52 of the Deep Dive show, and we are live. So a little bit different tonight. We're all going to have to be on our best behaviour. It's been just a massive week of boxing, and the guests I've got on tonight fit the bill perfectly. I'm referring to down below there, Nick Nunan, and that bloke up the top right-hand corner that should be here by now that's not. But Nick Nunan, welcome to Boxing Deep Dive, mate, and I can't wait to hear your recap of last week's massive show, not only in Melbourne but also Brisbane.
How are you, Lynn? Good to be back. Haven't been on for about 3 or 4 weeks, but always good to talk boxing with yourself and when Tassie's on time. So hopefully you'll be tuning in very shortly.
Yeah, there he is up the corner there. But, mate, look, as I said, I'm really keen on getting you onto, as I said, not only just the Cambosa side of things, but the Liam Paro side of things. Tassie, of course, spent the week with Devin Haney's team, obviously in conjunction with Ozboxing Central and Fight Hub, wasn't it? Both of them, or
Fight Hype, yeah.
Fight Hype. Sorry.
Fight Hype, Ozboxing Central, Nunanboy. Yeah, we'll talk about that. It was a massive operation and a lot of exciting things coming forward, Lynn. That we're going to do, so it should be good.
Sounds good, mate. When Tassie comes on, we'll get him up there in his little square up the top there. But if you're not familiar with the way we do things live, guys, if the comment section are there, if you've got a question or a comment or anything that you want to add, just put it in the comment section and we'll do the best to answer your question. And look, really good opportunity tonight to ask your questions, especially to Nick, who was one of the close-knit members of Team Cambosa's for the week, and spent the week with George down in his, what was an Airbnb, I'm gathering, something like that. So really good opportunity for you guys to get the input into what it was like for the week. Now, speaking of the other side of things, we are joined by Grant Tassie Brown in a sec. Grant Tassie Brown, what? You're in your car, mate?
Oh, come on, Tassie.
Oh, mate, I've got a busy life, boys. I do work and train people. So
all good, mate.
Sorry.
It's all good, mate. We just started quickly without you. We understand. Just keep driving. We'll just do our best to keep along with you as you go, mate. So,
Fernando Vargas, mate. This is the life we live, brother.
Good to have you anyway, mate. I know everyone's a bit busy and a little bit of an odd start tonight, 7:45. Mate, I've just welcomed, obviously, Nick to the show, and I just said to our listeners or our watchers out there and listeners that will listen to this later that really keen to get your input from both you guys. As I said, Nick with Team Cambosa, yourself with Team Haney. Just so much to talk about. So you just keep driving now.
Hey, what would Nick know, mate? He wasn't even around. He wasn't even around on the weekend. I don't even know where he was. He was in at some fortress in lockdown with the Gambosas.
Well, tell us about that, Nick. Well, it was very, very low key. There wasn't much sort of happening at all, because Haney obviously last time wasn't really out there either. And I know he tried his best to get a bit of a rise out of him. But you yourself, last time George drove the fight, and this time it was very, very low key. So obviously it was a deliberate thing. But how did you find fight week with the mood around the camp?
Mate, it was fantastic. We arrived a lot earlier than what people thought we arrived. We come in a certain way, and that's the way George and some others in the team wanted to keep it. As Tassie would know, Haney's not a real big talker, but George tried to play it back on him to get him to talk more as the A side now and to throw it back onto him. So, as Tassie would know, it sort of started off pretty low key. Tuesday we did the face off for certain members of the media, and we started to get a bit of a hype. And then Thursday, then we got into the open media workout. Friday, the press conference, and then obviously a little bit of back and forth at the weigh-in as boxers do. So, but no, it was good. It was all good in the camp houses. Everything was very, very relaxed. George made weight easily. What we had at the facility that we're at was just perfect for a boxer, and there's just no excuses. You know what I mean? Everything was all on track right up until fight day, and then obviously when the fight started, like it is with all boxing matches, it's over to the two fighters.
Yeah, well, we'll go through a rundown of the whole thing, mate, because I'm really interested, especially, you said, it got a little bit let's just say, a little bit tense at the press conference on the Thursday. Was it Thursday or Friday? I think it was Friday, was it?
Friday, yeah.
Friday, where, especially when Bill Haney tried to give George the book and he flicked it off. That was probably the first time I'd probably seen George just start to lose his cool a little bit. And then, of course, the weigh-in on the Saturday. And I must say thank you to you, Tassie, while we go, for actually getting me in on the day. If you didn't know, Nick, that us plebs out in the front, we weren't actually allowed in the general public, those without media credentials. And Tassie had to come out and with his thing and get me in. So thanks to that, Tassie.
Well,
but look, yeah.
Peter Matt wasn't around to do it, so I had to do it, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but mate, look, in just saying, look, you let Nick said about his thing. I'll give you my perspective with the Haney team. I was with them pretty much for the whole couple of weeks. I was doing dinner with Coach Padman and Big Reg, Big Ron.
Big Ron.
The big fella, Big Ron. Got to know Bill Haney very well. Had a few coffees with him one-on-one and really got to get to know the guy. Really liked his company, good bloke. And he was trying to, talk it up a bit and spook it up because George wasn't. But they were supremely confident. They knew Devon's skills would be on showcase. They respected George and they respect him that much after the fight as well, as we see him backstage. But me and Noon were privileged to be back there for that beautiful moment between both George and Devon, embracing backstage. But they were a good camp. They're a good team. And the fight played out how it played out. Obviously, his skills pay the bills. George is a warrior. As I said before, if George never beat Lopez, we don't have the 2 fights in Melbourne. We don't have those monumental, showcase in Australia. So, as I said, Jeff Horn started it with Pacquiao and George continued it with the win over Lopez. So, we've been lucky to have 2 great fight nights in Melbourne. And 2 really good, good fighters in George and Devon. They'll both go on to do bigger things. George is not done, as Nunan knows. He deserves a rest. He's fought three massive fights against 2 legends, probably future Hall of Famers one day. And he went the distance with all 3 of them. So, I mean, beat Lopez, lost to Haney. Haney's going to go on, mate, whether he stays at 135. I've heard he could move to 140, but there's big fights out there at 135 or 140. So, look, I said, Team Haney, great people. I'm not a sort of non-Australian. Obviously, I like George, but I don't really know the guy that well, so I don't really owe him anything. I like Devon and Bill, and it is what it is.
So, Nick, with the whole camp in the lead up to it, so they obviously brought in the new coach, Steve Backus, I think was his name. Is that right? Steve. Okay, yep. So they brought him in. I saw the interview that you did with him, which was great. So just take us into what the actual plan was, regardless of what all the circumstances. And everyone loves to chat in the industry about why someone wasn't there, why they went. Let's not worry about all that. But they brought in him as the head coach. So what was the plan from the get go? And what going in, you could obviously tell with the switching when he went into the fight. Was that how it was supposed to go?
It was supposed to go like that, but as Chris and George, and when we had a meeting after it, I think George didn't realise it, but he found after rounds 1, 2, and then the back half of 3 and 4, Devon started to pick up on that pretty quickly and started to sort of hit George with the right hand where he was getting away. George was getting away from the jab from moving out, but he was actually becoming closer to the right hand. Look, I love George. He's one of my best mates, but I think George started to go a little bit off the game plan and go back to the way he used to fight, which only he knows that, you know what I mean? And look, the plan was to switch, was to come in, create angles, try and get on that right side to swing the left over. And you saw in the first round, as Devon said out the back, and Tassie knows this, Devon and Bill and Reg, they were absolutely shocked the first 2 rounds. They didn't know. I'm not saying they didn't know what to do. After the first round, Bill was very, very sceptical. And then in round 2, they got comfortable. And then, the fight started to flow on for Haney. So that was the game plan. It was to try and to move the feet in different angles and create options and to get away from that jab, moving off that jab. But then again, these guys like Haney, they adapt. I mean, as George said, these Mayweather skilled fighters, they adapt. Like Shakur adapts, Haney adapts, and they've got a lot more artilleries in their angles, you know what I mean? And Devin really was fighting a complete different style from rounds 3 all the way through to round 12. A couple of times, as Tassie and yourself, Lynn, rounds 8 and round 9, the crowd sort of got back into it. George sort of, I wouldn't say he came back into the fight, but he came back into certain moments of the fight. And but Haney was still clear, and he was too good. And in round 10, George got hit with some really big shots. I'm surprised he actually stayed on his feet. It just shows you what a warrior he is. And then all of a sudden, George, I thought boxed well through round 11, and then 12, mate. Devin Haney and these guys like Floyd do, once they're out in front, Shakur, they don't fight reckless in round 12. They're impossible to get off the back foot. And he moved impeccable. Actually, Devin messaged me 2 days ago, actually, and he messaged George. He messaged George and myself. And he's actually said he's pulled up quite sore after the fight.
Was
a few, there is a few shots there was a lot of shots that they both gave each other. George was sore as well, but it was funny because I asked Devin, how you feeling? He goes, man, I'm sore. And, it was a tough fight in parts.
Yeah.
Tassie, it looked, I was just going to say, Tassie, it looked like, and look, all elite fighters adjust, and when fatigue and that sets in as well, it's hard to stick to the game plan. But I thought it must have been after the 9th round. George had a really good round, but then Devin came out really hard in the 10th. I actually thought that was going to be it, but he dug in hard, and it was a pretty good effort to last those 2 rounds, I thought, in what was just a really grueling fight.
Yeah, you couldn't ask any more from George. I mean, you're only as good as your skills and your and that allows you to be. We know he trains phenomenally, so he had a great camp, and we know he's got a good chin, and he's got good skills, but just not enough to beat Devin Haney. George can beat most people in the world, but he won't beat Devin Haney if they fight. And that's the way it is, mate. It's not a bad thing. He couldn't ask him to do any more. He tried his hardest. He tried all different things. That's not even really his style. He done what he could. He took shots. He didn't quit. It's not in him. So look, you can't do any more. You just have to accept one day that a guy's a better fighter than you. That's plain and simple. But he done us all proud, and he done himself and family proud. That's George Gambosis. I mean, what can you say about the guy? But Haney's a special fighter. We don't know how good he's going to be yet, and I've said it for a while now. I'm still thinking he could be like a Floyd. I won't say it yet, but he's got every attribute, and he's an awesome fighter. Shakur, him are the special ones. Tank, and you still got a lot of guys in the division. Garcia and Loma, and Linares can fight too. Linares, but I mean, look, it was a great fight. And I'm proud of both guys, Nunan, Team Gambosis, done a great job with all the build up to it, and Australia should be blessed to have had 2 good fights, and Victoria should be blessed because you won't see it very often, guys. This doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, let's get on to the fight itself. Go, Nick. Sorry, mate.
No, that's exactly right. You look at what George has achieved with inside 11 and a half months to fight 3 massive big fights in 3 massive fights in 11 and a half months is massive. And we haven't seen an Australian fighter do that for a very long time. You know what I mean? I don't even know if an Australian fighter has even ever done that in a long time. You know what I mean?
Probably, mate, given the time frame, the time
frame of how under that 11 and a half months.
Yeah, probably haven't.
I don't think we've ever had it. You know what I mean? Like, I keep saying this. Like, Teofomo is going to be a nasty individual at 140, a nasty individual, and George beat him. Devin Haney, my tune sort of changed a bit about Devin Haney and Gervonta. I think he beats. I'm not saying Shakur, because I want to talk about Shakur's at 130 going to 35. Haney's at 35 going to 40. I think Haney beats most guys at 140 and 135. I really do. He's getting better. He's getting bigger. His mental game is impeccable. We all try different things with him. Even, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Like, I had a bit of a run-in with him on Instagram about 6 weeks out from the fight. He's very hard to rattle. Look, he's got some good people around him, as Tassie knows. He's been there and he's seen it. And the way he boxes and the way he moves, he can make it very, very difficult for a guy like Gervonta Davis, who is a good boxer, don't get me wrong. But Gervonta, you'd actually have to have a different game plan than just trying to load up the left with Haney, because that's not going to work. You can't load up with Devon. If you try to load up, he's already in and out. He moves. The way he keeps that right hand, Tassie, here, and how he moves the head with it, is remarkable. You know what I mean? He instead of taking it off to the right and shooting it long and going the head first, Lynn, he shoots it and hooks it straight over. He's a remarkable boxer. And like I said before, 29-0 at the age of 23. And look, Tassie, I said this to you the other night on a phone call when we rang and did the wrap-up. Lomachenko's smaller than George Kambosos. Lomachenko's an all-time great. Haney beats him. Haney beats him. Haney beats him and beats him convincingly. Haney's too big. He's too strong. Haney's got a bit of dog in him too. We saw Haney have a bit of... Like the first fight, he was very sceptical of George. We could hear it, not that I was in the corner, but close to the corner. He was very weary of the right hand from George. He was saying, I've got to get away from the brick. He was nervous about fighting George. The second time, it was a different fight. But with Lomachenko, Haney, he would be able to handle Lomachenko.
We can see there, and he says, I've no doubt, in my opinion, that had Loma beat Teo, he would have returned for Dev, but he lost. Loma's resume is littered with the best available at the time. Depends on how you look at it, I suppose. And Shane...
It's a funny fight, that. Like, we go back to Lomachenko versus Teo, and, we all saw that fight. That fight was 7-0 after 7 rounds. And Loma thought he was going to come in with the power at the latter stages of the fight. Loma just did not have the strength and didn't have the size to compete with Teo. Tassie will agree with me. Devon Haney is a class boxer above Teofimo Lopez.
Yeah, of course.
Devon Haney's going to be the same size as Teo, but he's going to be a lot better boxer against Lomachenko. And as Bill said, and he probably said this to you, Taz, top rank, Ludabella, a lot of people are getting pumped up on Lomachenko versus Devon Haney versus Lomachenko. It's 50-50 if it'll happen.
Yeah, it's not 100%. Look, he could go to 140. He might not even fight there anymore. Like Bill said, after the Christmas break, we'll see what he is after he has a bit of vacation. You know what I mean? They're not sure. They're really not sure.
Well, that's going to be our first talking point in a sec, but the official scorecards were 119, 109, 118, 110 times 2. So what was the feeling from the camp, Nick? Were they?
No, I didn't score it like that.
Yeah, I thought it might have been a fraction closer.
I gave George round 1. I gave him nearly round 3. And I maybe gave him one other round. So I gave him at least 3.
I gave him round 9.
Rounds. Round 9.
I gave him 2 rounds. 1 and 9, that was it.
10 was a Haney round, a big round, and the rest were Haney. But I definitely didn't have it. No, I didn't have that.
Yeah, well, I mean, end of the day, I suppose it's doesn't really matter. A lot of it was unanimous. I don't think there's any arguments about it. But what was the feeling after the fight, Nick, in the change rooms? I mean, I got the feeling that George and his team were content. Not obviously, you're never happy that you lose, but they're content that they gave it the all, and there's really nothing else they could have done.
George is surrounded by incredible, beautiful people. One in his father, Chris Backus, his beautiful partner, Rebecca. The feeling was how proud we all were of George. A lot of guys, would have curled up in that round 10, and he dug deep to stay on his feet.
Yep.
And he was warrior-like. And I was saying this today to Jim and some other people in America that I spoke to who said, geez, Nick, and Elvis Grant even said it, the content that we got, and thank you, Tassie. Tassie was great as well, but the content that we got from when the fight finished for that next 2 or 3 hours, which sometimes you don't get that at some fights, really showed how George really felt and how Devon really felt. And we got that out, and digitally, it was huge. It was, for those who don't know, on Fight Hype, it was bigger than Clarissa Shields and Marshall. It was bigger than Wilder and Hellenius. And it was bigger than Palmer and Jarvis the night before. So that time frame between 2:30 and 8 o'clock that night was just a massive, massive viewing on the digitals, and was great to showcase how both teams felt about each other. And then when you hear the likes of Bill Haney pull George aside and go, we studied you more than we've ever studied any other fighter. And he actually grabbed me. He said, Nick, George Kambosos, and I know this, we know this. He's a big name in America, Kambosos. He's very big in America. And Bill said, you guys have got, well, not you guys, but George has got some massive fights left in America and the world. And, like Hagler and Hearns, Sugar Ray, Duran, sometimes people have your measure. And Devon Haney had George's measure, and I think you'll have a lot of people measures. And I think it'll be something when we're a lot older, 10, 15 years. I'll probably say to George and his beautiful kids, that your father fought one of the greatest boxers of all time. Not once in front of 43,000, but twice in front of 13,000, 14,000 people. So not fighters in Australia can say they've done that.
Exactly. Tassie, from your point of view, Tassie, same thing. What was the mood in the Haney camp afterwards and the feelings about how the fight went?
Yeah, I was blessed, Lynden, and thank you obviously to Nick, and thank you to Fight Hype for the opportunity. I mean,
but to be fair, sorry to cut you off. To be fair, Tassie the last time built his relationships as well. A few people said to me, and I want to correct a few people that were like, oh, you know what I mean? How come Nunan's waiting at the airport? At the end of the day, it's a competition. It's George versus Devon. He's got the right to go for whoever he was. Tassie actually built that relationship with the Haney team the first time. If he wants to do that, he does that, and then we come together after. So I just wanted to clear that. It wasn't my opportunity that got Tassie into those back areas. Probably with the media, yes, but the other stuff, he did that himself.
Not like you, Tassie, to get yourself in there.
No, you haven't witnessed nothing, have you, Lynden? Only nearly killing myself in the middle of doing it. But anyway, I was the only person besides main event to get Devon's ring entrance. So I was the only one back there. I was the only one until later on Nick come in with George. That was backstage in the change rooms. We're eating pizza, eating chicken. I was chilling with Devon's little brother and sister. Beautiful people, Sean and Bella, his mum and his stepmom, Bill, the uncles I built a relationship with, the coaches. So we were chilling back there. I was doing a few interviews and just chilling with the team. And then Nick come in with George and Jim. And we shared that special moment where Devon said, you changed my life, bro. And that was
great of him to say that, I thought.
Beautiful, mate. So, mate, look, I was blessed to be back there. I did have a relationship with him last time through Yoel Judah and Coach Padman. And I visited Devon, as you know, Lynden, together at Top Rank. And then we hanged out. This time I did apologise to Devon for being in his face. And he said, that's all good. He'd had some food and some hydrolytes by then because I was a bit worried he was going to get a bit dirty on me being everywhere he was. But that was that. Look, it was a great experience, something I won't forget. And I'm enjoying being part of the media team. But it was a good after feeling. I kicked on at the Grand Height with them, and it was good to be part of the team. Also, Truck, Lorenzo Simpson, and the other boxer,
Amari Jones.
Amari Jones, yeah. So yeah, there's some good guys too.
All right, well that's the fight itself. Let's get on to the first talking point, Nick. We'll start with you. What now for Haney Kambosos? I know we've just sort of briefly touched on it, but there has been talk that Devin Haney said unless he only wants the top guys, or else he's going to go to 140. So his is probably not necessarily I think the main talking point. It's George. Now, I think unfairly, there's been talk that, now George is finished and there's nothing else. But I agree with you. There's so many big fights for him. People are going to see him. He's a name. He's obviously the former undisputed champion. I would see someone like a Stevenson or a Shakur Stevenson, seeing him as the ideal step up to lightweight. Of course, there's Davis and Garcia and Lomachenko himself, but there's so many other big fights for him out there. And I just don't get how you lose 2 fights to one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world and it's all over.
As Bill Haney said to me, when you've got a division there at 135 that has so many different stars, and George Kambosos is one of those. There's actually 6 stars there. You even go to Zach Cruz at PBC, who's a tremendous fighter, who gave Tank a very, very tough fight. You know what I mean? A lot of the times we forget to mention him. For George now, I think it's a lot of rest. As we said before, 3 fights in under 11 and a half months. And even before that, with all the travelling through COVID, on the back of Selby, Mickey Bay before that, and then the other fights, he's been very busy from 2020 all the way through to now. I'd like to see him have a rest, sit down with the team, and then have a look at fighting another fighter that is inside the top 10 and obviously building. I don't think he'll fall too much in the IBF and the WBA. The BC and the WBO, I think he will. But another fight there where it's still a tough fight, but one that's going to, be more favourable to win, get your confidence back up. And then maybe later next year, if he fights twice next year, I think he'll fight in April, May. I think he'll fight in April, May next year. And then I think he'll fight again in November later next year. Me personally, and I never tell George what to do, but me personally, I'd like to see him go back over to America and fight over in America.
Yeah, I agree.
He's a big name. I think that, with the DiBella connection there and DiBella working in with other people, I think he could headline his own show, a smaller show, but obviously with a good purse. If not, he fights here. I don't think he'd do a stadium show here, but he could probably do Rod Laver here in front of 9,000, 10,000 people with somebody else, whether it's an Australian person or a former, something like that. For Haney, I think Haney has the right to sit back with all those 4 belts and literally pick who he wants to pick, who brings him in the most money that makes the most sense. And the factors are they've got to look at the weight, which is 135. Can he do it again? And it's for Lomachenko. Well, he's got a gut wrench back down there to do that. If it's around about dollars, look, I think the biggest fight for him for dollars is Gervonta Davis. It's not Ryan Garcia. It's not Teofimo. It's Gervonta Davis. But that could be a fight where both teams, like Bill and his team and PBC, obviously want to build that fight because currently the build right now is for Davis versus Garcia. So I think George has got plenty of options. I think Devin needs to sit back and really say, I've got all 4 belts. But in saying that, when George had all the 4 belts, he could have fought a lesser opponent. He could have fought someone that they brought in.
DiBella wanted him to. He told me. He wanted him to do that.
He did. Yeah, he did. And for those who don't know, the Lomachenko thing was signed. It was delivered, and then obviously it went a different way. So we could have had Kambosos fighting Lomachenko twice, and we would have never saw the Haney fight. Or it could have been Lomachenko once, and George lands a ball and overhand right, knocks Lomachenko. It can go so many different ways. So I think George Kambosos, what he did was very, very courageous. But I don't think Devin Haney, now that he's got the belts, will move as quick as like that. I think him and his team will get the same amount of money, if not a little bit more that they got from the Kambosos' fights, and then do that and then go into a mega fight later next year.
Before I let Tassie comment on as well, Nick, just got a quick question from Shane there. Genuine question. Does George Sr. confuse and emotionally overcharge the Kambosos corner, or is that what George needs?
Does George Sr.? Who's George Sr.?
Jim. George, I think, is the grandfather, isn't he? George Sr.?
Yeah,
he died. Talking about Jim, obviously.
Yeah, Jim. Do you think
Jim, okay.
Yeah. Does he get a bit emotionally overcharged, or does George need that to get him up?
Look, I don't know. Like, it's funny. The Teofimo fight, when he fought Teofimo, Jim was quite vocal in that, and it worked. The first fight, I never really heard Jim in the first fight in the corner. This one, he did. He obviously is playing a few roles there as manager and as advisor, and he is the father of George, you know what I mean? Look, that's something between George, Jim, and Chris that they'll work out. Certainly, as I said to George, you know what I mean? One thing George knows about me, I talk about on what I know. If I don't know about what that is all about, I don't have an opinion on it, you know what I mean? But, yeah Jimmy was very, very vocal to answer your question there, very, very loud. And, look, there's a lot on the line. And I always say one thing, there's different levels to it, you know what I mean? Sometimes you can't have an opinion until you're in that situation, you know what I mean? So you just don't know what Jim was feeling and the way he was about it.
It's all good, Shane. It's easy. It is. A lot of people ask, why is he a junior? It's because of his grandfather was senior. So, Tassie, I was going to ask you what's next for Haney. Judging by what I've seen in social media the last couple of days, it could be Haney versus Paulie Malignaggi the way we're going. Get to see all that?
Yeah. I've seen, hang on.
Yeah, it's all right. Well,
I've seen that, obviously, yeah. I've seen that. Look, I'll say what I like to see happen. What I like to see happen is have probably one more fight at 135 against Lomachenko, because I believe Top Rank are trying to build towards that. He's got one fight left with Top Rank. I'd say he beats Lomachenko, it goes to 140. There's a few fights there. Regis, what's the name's fighting for the belts. Lopez will fight for the belt. The winner, the rematch out of Josh, what's his name, the Scottish bloke. So the belts will be freed up there. Look, I think he'll probably move before Shakur gets a shot. So every time in the amateurs, Shakur would always go up, Devil would go up. That's the way their career was, just through weight and difference. So I don't think the Tank Haney fight will happen, because I just don't think it happened. Ford and Ellaby, I just don't see it happening. They're not going to risk their cash cow. The Garcia Tank might happen, but so I don't think Haney really fights any of the other kings in the 135. I think if he'll beat the main one, Loma, and they'll make him a household name, because he's known at the moment, but beating Loma, excuse me if I'm wrong, Nick, I think that puts him over to that status in America where he's known all around the place.
Yeah,
no, exactly. Well,
you're right. Grant's actually right. And for those who don't know, and this is not knocking Devon, I think Devon's the best fighter now, not just because he's beaten George, just some things that I saw him doing in the ring. And I've seen Tank fight live. I've seen Ryan fight live. So I can have an opinion on this. Is Devon's not the biggest star over there. Gervonta Davis is, then Ryan. You know what I mean? When he fought Linares, there was only about 3,800 people there. When he fought Jojo Diaz, there was only about 3,500. You know what I mean? Tank does 18,000 at the Stable Centre. Landry, he's doing 16,000. He's a big-time fighter. Yeah. But, Grant's right there. He beats Lomachenko. He builds his brand a lot bigger in America because obviously Tank and Garcia have that held down. And Teo's the funny one, because Teo's the one that thought he was a bit bigger than he was, but Teo actually doesn't tell. Teo's last show, there was only 1,826 people in the venue. Wow. And he was, this is fact.
He thought he was Mr. Pay-Per-View.
Yeah, and, he's had a bit of a dig today, George and Devon Haney. I think Devon Haney and George have both pulled him in the line because, one, George dusted him, and two, they did bigger numbers in their two fights than probably what Lopez will do in his next five. So, look, there's so many moving parts to it, Lynn.
Quick one for you, mate, before we move on to the rest of the card. James asks, is Haney's contract with Bob Arum over yet? It is, okay?
No. He has one more fight that he can use, and he can use it at 35 or 140.
Okay.
And as Bill said to me the other night, he might use it at 140. All right? Because what people are going to realise is That's right. If he used, say Devin Haney goes and fights somebody else on Top Rank at 140, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then he gets out of the Top Rank contract. Lomachenko, right? He's either going to fight Devin Haney just to do the fight where it's bigger money, or he's not going to do the fight, is he?
Yeah.
So it's a trick. It's a tricky one, that one.
But-
Very, very tricky.
Let me tell you now, boys, in regards to Loma,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so are you there?
He's
Oh,
blind.
good, mate, yeah.
In regards to Loma, in regards to Lomachenko, he either fights and loses to Haney or fights and loses to Shakur. I'll tell you
Exactly.
that. Lomachenko is now the guy that's going to pass the torch and put over the next big star. So I think it's going to be Haney or it's going to be Shakur. One of them will fight Loma, and I think both beat him, and they'll be a household name.
Yeah. Well, no matter what happens, all I can say it was another great event. And obviously, it wasn't as big as the first one, but I thought the atmosphere there was awesome. I thought the fight itself was a lot better as well, and really, as an Aussie, proud of the effort that George put up. And look, he just ran into an exceptional fighter. So, not that George is probably watching, but if you are, George, hats off, mate.
No, I think he was watching, actually. I think he was watching.
Oh, congratulations, George. Great effort, and Australia's proud of you, mate. So,
100%.
we've got a comment here from old mate Big J. Now, I actually met old mate Big J at the fights the other day. He said, "G'day, I'm not sure whether you know who he is."
Hey, Big J. How are you, brother?
Yeah, I think he asked a couple of questions at the press conference. So, here's another one for you, maybe, Nick. Who realistically can George fight domestically? I'm not probably thinking there's really anyone that he would actually come back for, is there?
You never know. There could be someone that he fights.
You got that look on your face. You know something, don't you?
No, I don't. But you never know. He could fight Billy Dibb. It is a possibility.
Nah, come on.
Well, look, you got to look at where the fighters are ranked in their sanctions and in the IBF. And Billy Dibb is inside the top 10. There could be a potential fight in the future with Kambosos versus Dibb. Apart from that,
well, Billy almost fought Paul Fleming yesterday.
yeah, I saw the boys got a little bit pumped up. But look, that's the one. But if it's not Billy Dibb, I think Billy Dibb's one of about 8 fighters that George can fight in the world.
Yeah.
But that's domestically. It would only be Billy Dibb. Internationally, I think there's a lot. But I think George can make more money fighting certain big names overseas.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the right thing for his career. He's only 29. He's still pretty in check.
Yeah.
He's still very, very fit. He's in the gym this afternoon, a silly bugger. Like, for fuck's sake, like, George, please.
Yeah.
But we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, well, it was a great fight, as I said. I mean, and that's why it's great to have input from you guys. I'm sure everyone watching out there appreciates your input to both Team Kambosos and Team Haney. And look, I just got to ask you too, Nick, where does the whole promotional thing fall in? Because obviously there was Lou DiBella, there was Top Rank, there was Duco. You know, where was Duco's involvement in it?
Well, what happens there is the agreement for the first fight was DiBella Entertainment co-promoted with Top Rank.
Yep.
The first time DiBella Entertainment used David Higgins and the crew from Juco to help out with it, and they were fantastic. The second time around, as Tassie would know, it was more of a Top Rank show, although we did have Juco and TEG, who were part of the first one, on the other side.
Yep.
DiBella has a deal with Top Rank, with the Haney deal, that even in Haney's next fight, DiBella is part of that one as well. And then obviously DiBella hey?
I think he said
Really?
Yeah. So DiBella is part of that. And then for Top Rank obviously have one fight left with Haney, and George has another fight left with DiBella, which is really, really good. and that's how it rolls.
Yeah, it's interesting too because if Rowan, I think the public would turn sour if Billy Dib fight happened here. Yeah, it's an interesting one because the whole Jacob NG Billy Dib fight left a lot of people a little bit bitter about it. The way there was lots of, obviously, there's always two sides to the story, but that left a few people not happy with Billy Dib. I mean, the guy got body slammed. Not sure what else he could do, but yeah, look. Who knows? I think George Kambosos pretty much versus anyone in Australia is going to be a big event. It's whether George, in my opinion, you obviously know him a lot better than I do, is whether George can actually get up for a fight, even if it's Billy Dib.
Exactly. Well said.
Yeah. Another one here from Andy. Keep the comments coming there, guys. Super proud of you, Mr. Ferocious Kambosos. That's what we want to hear. And old mate again, pleasure to meet Lynden and Tassie. Yep, Nick, as always, your support is much appreciated. Yep, both you guys doing great stuff for Aussie boxing, guys. And really great to meet a few people at the fights who introduce themselves, who watch the show. So thanks again, guys, for watching.
Thanks, guys. I've seen a few at the press conference, and a bloke come up to me and goes, Splinters Many Artists. I said, oh, did you watch last night, did you? And I said, Tassie, we love it when you pound Peter's ass on the quiz. Like, we love it when he gets all butt ass sore. And we really appreciate you making him call you daddy. So I said, thanks, guys. Keep tuning into the quizzes. I'm championing recess at the moment because I have no opponents.
Yep. Nick, you were at Dib's last outing on the Gold Coast. I was ringside, and there's only one side to that story. That's an interesting one.
Look, let me say something.
Well, you were there too, weren't you, Tassie?
Let me say something. I don't want anyone bagging Billy Dib or my Body Punch brothers. Billy Dib was a world champion. He's fought some great fighters, Amir Khan and many others. Mate, look, I was there that night, a part of the Team Dib team, because Billy Hussein is more than family to me. So, look, let's just keep it clean.
Yep.
He's a world champion. It played out how it played out. He's ranked number 9 or number 7 in the IBF, and it is what it is, guys. So, if money speaks all languages, if that fight happens, it does. But let's keep our comments positive, guys.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone slandering guys that I have a very strong friendship with. I'll leave it at that.
Tassie, the quiz king. There we go.
100%, mate.
And as Tassie knows, Lynn, there's one thing, and I was pretty disappointed. Like, I'm not going to lie. You know, we'll get to Paro Jarvis in a minute.
Yep.
I was very vocal after that fight. But at the end of the day, you can have an opinion on who you think is going to win or how the fight's going to go. But if you've never had a professional boxing fight, you never, ever say, oh, Billy Dib did this or Billy Dib that or Jacob NG, because
Amen.
Yeah.
As Tassie knows, we just don't do that at Fight Hype and Nunanboy Promotions.
Yeah.
Never have, never will. You know what I mean? You can have an opinion on, I think he could have done that, but you can't say, he did that because he wasn't hurt. Well, you don't know because you weren't in there.
Yeah.
So, look,
well, I wasn't there, so I can't comment on it. Kyle, comment there. We'll get to this shortly, mate. Thoughts on use of Dib versus Fleming. I've got a separate section on that, so we'll get to that soon. Let's move on to the rest of the card there, boys.
It's not use of Dib, it's Bilal Dib.
Oh, okay, Bilal Dib. Okay, yeah, you're right. We'll get to that. So, Team Maloney set themselves up for world title opportunities down the track after dominant performance. And Nick, I was really impressed with the boys. I think they were both talking to I talked to Andy after the fight. I know they were a little bit frustrated that both their opponents, they're elite competition, of course, and they made it difficult for them. They wanted to put on a show, but all you can do is just get the W, don't you?
Exactly. And Jason, obviously Andrew kicked off the show early. He was in a pretty tough fight, as we said before. The guy that he fought in his first 9 fights that he had very, very quickly, actually lost 8 of his first 10.
Yep.
And I think after that, he's won 38 out of his next 39. He was a very, very tough opponent and made it difficult for Andrew at times. But Andrew was on top. He boxed very well. Shout out to Angelo Hyder, Tony Tolger, and the whole team there. They had both their boys extremely fit. Jason was in an even tougher fighter with a more skillful fighter.
He was tough.
Yeah, he was tough. What was his name again? Nawafon was very, very strong. So, look, Jason did what he had to do. Those guys both are a cut above that sort of B-grade level in the world. They're both A-grade fighters. Look, as we know, Jason was a tad off with Inoue, but Jason Maloney is one that doesn't get enough credit in this country. He's probably in our top 1 or 2 or 3 fighters, to be really honest with you. You know what I mean? And
100%.
those weight classes don't do any justice because we don't put enough focus on them. But look, I see with the Paul Butler and the Inoue thing, there can be some moving pieces through October, November, December, and we could have Jason, really fighting and defending that WBC world title early next year, Lynn. So that's massive for Australia. I'd love to see, I'm not trying to give away too much, but early next year, I'd like to see Jason Maloney head his own show in Melbourne, whether it's at a smaller venue. I think we can get 4,000 or 5,000 people in there.
Yeah, Margaret Court Arena or something like that. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And Jason deserves that. And these guys need a lot. They're both incredible human beings,
They are.
firstly. And
100%.
we talk about, pound for pound, and Devon deserves to be on that. My 3 pound for pound fighters in the world is Devon Haney, Inoue, and to a certain degree, look, Crawford and Canelo you can throw in there and whatnot, but Inoue is one of them that I think is probably nearly number 1. And our guy Jason Maloney is, he's been in there with the guy and competed against probably the highest level that we've seen in a long time in that division. So look,
And
these
apart from
guys
Donaire, probably did the best.
Exactly. So you can't take anything away from both of them. And I think for Andrew too, I think Andrew's still got a shot at a world title there as well. The Franco debacle was hard. The second fight that was called off too early, and then, he went over there and, I think he took too much emotion into that third fight. But I think both these boys could potentially be, particularly Jason, but both of them could be world champions within the next 2 years.
And Tassie, 31 years of age. They're both in the peak at the moment. This is a time for both of them to strike.
Well, they're 31, mate. I've known the boys since I was 15 years old. As I said, I hosted them in Tasmania with Luke Jackson, many a training camp as an amateur before the Aussie titles or for international comps, and also as pros as well. So I know the boys well. I've got a great friendship with both guys, and they've got a great team around them. Tony Tolge, Enzo Hyder, top rank. I mean, it's all there for them. I'm sure they both will fight for world titles in 223, and they're very good chance of both winning as well. So, but they're a class act. To watch them train and prepare, they leave no stone unturned. They're always in shape. Like Andrew said, there's not a training camp because they're always in camp. And
Exactly.
I love how they use their jab.
Yeah.
Enzo Hyde is a great trainer. They're both behind a great, straight, hard pistol-like left jab, which is the best punch in boxing and doesn't get used enough. And no disrespect to George, who's a legend, wasn't using the jab enough the other night. He's not on the jab.
Yeah, well, let's hope next year both of them get their opportunities. And as you said, Tassie, they've got a great team behind them. Nothing else could be really more in their favour. And they're the type of guys you just want the best for them. So I'm sure if karma's a thing, then they'll both be world champions next year. Let's get on to the other fight, the main fight on the card, Nick. And this was the girls. Sonika Johnson retained the IBF female super bantamweight title over Susie Ramadan in a 10-round bloodbath. Now, Tassie, I know you probably can't get into a lot of the discussion about it, but you were in the corner on the night. So, I'll ask Nick his opinion first, and I want your opinion on what it was like actually in the corner on the day of the fight. So, Nick, what were your thoughts?
Look, my thoughts was how it was going to go. I thought it'd be a tough fight. You know what I mean? A lot of people were saying Sonika was going to knock her out, and I think people forgot. And this is when you get people that haven't really been around boxing. They've just come into it recently. Don't really realise the legend of Susie Ramadan. Susie Ramadan's one of our greatest fighters, one of our best female fighters of all time. And look, it was a funny fight. Obviously, the head clash early. Neeks had to face adversity. There was times through the first couple of rounds where we thought the fight was going to get called off. Tassie, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I thought Neek's come over the top of her. I will say something here, and I don't like saying it, but I thought the referee was piss poor. I thought the referee at times took points when he shouldn't have took points. The fight had its own sort of style where he could have let it go. So when you look at the scorecards, there's no sort of indication on that, how that fight went. To Neeks as a person, I think what she's been through the last 6-7 weeks is tremendous. And I think the fight for her, the first fight was just her getting into that ring. And it was absolutely amazing to see her do that with her new team. And then, she came over the top of Susie Ramana. But definitely there was some stuff that we could take out of that fight that probably could have been a little bit better. But at the end of the day, it's onwards and upwards for Neeks. I don't know what Susie's going to do now, but with DeBella Entertainment and what Neeks is going to do, I think Neeks is another one that could go overseas and do some fights overseas and grow her brand. She's such a good-looking young lady. She speaks well. I think she's going to get better as a fighter, and it's onwards and upwards for her.
Yeah, it was a gutsy effort with the head clash, and I said the other night on the show, it was like she got hit in the head with an axe. That's how deep and how wide it was, and really, in my humble opinion, I thought the fight should have 100% been stopped at the time. Credit to her team or the cut man who got it under control as the fight went on. But as it stood right there and then, I mean, as she's talking to the doctor, the blood's actually spurting out at him. But she was such a gutsy performance. Best I've seen her fight, I will say, and what better way to get it in the biggest fight of her career against a two-time champion. So, Tassie, what was the thoughts in the corner, mate? What did you make of it as you go? Was there frustration with the referee, or was it just you had other things on your hands at the time?
No, look, there was frustration with the referee. I'm not playing the blame game. Look, we wanted Susie. Like, Lynchek is a great trainer. He was the number one in the corner, and I was there as the second. But, just the box use her feet, use her skills in and out. We're not going to stand in front of Neeks. She was overreaching a bit early, Susie, but I thought she won. She definitely had some great rounds. The cut definitely should have been stopped at the time when she was twitching and she literally in front of the doctor. I thought I seen the doctor actually wave his head that it was over.
Yeah, I did too.
But I did congratulate the cut man because he did get it under control and he did stop it going in the eye. But look, I think the blood bothered Susie. I think the referee with the points. Look, some referees like to be seen too much, and they try and be bigger than the fighters. And this guy was one of them. 100%. Like, they try and make it about them. And look, it was a world title fight. There was no need for those points. That did throw Susie off the game. But I thought she won some bloody rounds and she put in a great effort. And, it wasn't much in it at all. It was not much in it,
So, Tassie, I know you can't comment on this, but I've got to address it. Nick, the comments after the fight, what were your thoughts?
I wouldn't even bother addressing them, but anyway, up to you.
No, well, mate, fans ask about it. It's a talking point. What did you make of it?
Not acceptable.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it wasn't right. And if Susie wants to ring and look, I can't have an opinion on what it's like to feel straight after the fight. But
it's obviously frustration.
Yeah, look, to be honest, probably didn't need to go down that route.
No, I agree. Look, I thought she was going to say something about the referee, and I said, look, just use your experience, stay classy, and and I actually didn't even hear it. But there, look, there's definitely no need for what was said. But heat of the moment, things happen. We know that. But I mean,
exactly.
Look,
exactly. Yeah.
Our corner wasn't happy about it, but I mean, but just as the fight went, she done a great job. 2 divisions. Referee on a case. Well done to Neeks. She fought great, and she should go to America because she does have all the packages, the looks, and she can fight. Good personality, so she should go away and try and do bigger things in America or England. But it is what it is. Look, it was a competitive fight between 2 great Australian female fighters.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it was you, Tassie, said frustration obviously kicked in. I think if she had a time again, she wouldn't say it. But at the end of the day, it was a very frustrating fight for her. And, you know, she's a very popular fighter, so don't just judge her on those comments because she's done a lot for.
Oh no, way, of course
not for not just
100%.
Australian women's boxing, but Australian boxing. So,
100%.
all right, let's go. Well, the rest of the card, guys, just quickly we'll move on. But just on the rest of it, a couple of fights I wanted to sort of highlight. For me, the unsung prospect of Australian boxing. He had to come on after the main event. Would have been so hard. John Manu, I hung around and watched the fight. I know, Nick, you would have been out the back, so would you, Tassie. I hung around and watched the fight. This kid, he can fight. Very, very underrated. And I felt so bad for him that he didn't get a chance to put his, show his wares on the national broadcast. But he beat an undefeated fighter in Adrian Sosa, who was 12-0. And I don't know whether you guys have seen any footage of it, but I just wanted to give him a special shout out because I thought he did a great job.
100%, mate. He just won in Canada. 2 divisions he went up. He just won again. I seen him at the press conference or the weigh-in, I think it was.
Really good kid.
He's a really good kid.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on him. Anyone in Australia, super lightweight, be careful of this guy. He can fight. So he just went over to Canada and won a fight. Now he's come and beat an undefeated American. Mate, John Manu, he's a very unsort of recognisable figure because he doesn't get mentioned much, but the kid can fight.
Yeah, he did. Just quickly on the undercard, Nick. Nick, we had so David Nyika, probably predictable knockout of Titi Motsusaga. Lorenzo Simpson, 6-round decision over Marcus Hayward. Amari Jones, good win over Tej Singh. And one that I was really impressed with was Django Opolu with a 4th-round knockout or stoppage of Hemi Ahoy. Is that how you pronounce it? Ahoy?
Hemi Ohio. Look, don't think Hemi Ohio was as fit as what he thought he was. And Django, shout out to Lukey Meldon.
Yeah, did a great job.
Lukey Meldon, Stevie Della, they're good boys, mate, up there at the old.
Mate, I've had a couple of run-ins of Luke, as you do, as men over the years, but fuck, at least he tells you straight to your face what he thinks here. And look, at the end of the day, he does. We've had a couple of tiffs, but fuck, we've put it in the past. He's a great guy, Lukey Meldon, and mate, Lukey Meldon.
Who could have a tip with you, Nunan? He's such a likeable guy.
Oh, yeah.
They're great. Steve Della's the one you got to watch.
At the end of the day, shout out to Lukey Meldon and Stevie Della. They had a tremendous game plan. And I think Luke Meldon is a very underrated coach in this country.
Well, he's the head coach up there now.
Exactly. So, look, they had a game plan. Django's a warrior. He's another one that flies under the radar. And they came over the top, mate. And, look, he had the will to go. Lorenzo Simpson, look, I don't know, Tassie. I don't think Lorenzo and Amari are as good as what they think they are. Amari, to be honest, should have got Taj Singh out of there. Taj Singh is a very, very tough fighter. We know that. He's close loss to Isaac Harbin. But those guys, look, Lorenzo Truck, the Baltimore guy, I thought he probably would have stopped his fight. If I had looked at the card, and I did, I thought Amari Jones was going to have an early night and Lorenzo Simpson, but that's boxing. And it didn't go that way.
They're still young guys. They're still young guys, Nunan. They're still very young and they're still learning, mate. So, look, Truck had a lot of amateur fights. I think if he stays the course and keeps it real, they've both got big potentials, mate. But look, they're still young, mate. People get too carried away about fighters early. Still got a lot to learn in the game, but they're in a good team. I was with Truck's uncle, Dirty, good guy. Yeah. And, mate, look, they're still learning their craft.
And you got to think too, Lynn, you've done it yourself in the amateurs and that, they're a long way from home as well. You know what I mean? Like, they're a long, long way from home. So shout out to those two boys. And what was the other fight on the undercard was David Nyika. I actually didn't see David Nyika's fight. I actually didn't see it. So, no, I thought it was a better card than last time, though. Yeah,
no, it wasn't too bad, actually. It was some good fighters on there. And, of course, when you're at those fights, you just can't wait to get through them, I suppose, to get to the main fights. But it was a great day. Speaking of another big show, mate, and you were obviously front and centre for it as well, was Liam Paro and Brock Jarvis. There you can see you in the photo there.
I was very happy that night, and I apologise to some people that I ripped it into a few people after it. Yeah. Not that Brock wasn't up to standard. Was just wanted to let a few people know about levels in boxing, and Liam Paro means a lot to me. He's a very close friend. He's very dedicated to the process. He went over to America many times over the last 4 years. He was over there from June the 14th this year. So June, July, August, September, 4 months, put a hell of a lot of work in. That fight was, I'm going to be honest, the fight was a mismatch. And I knew it was a mismatch. I actually, Alfie DiCarlo will back me on this, and Liam in the sheds after it. They said, Nunan, you said this was going to happen exactly the way it did. I predicted that Brock would be out inside 1 or 2. I said maybe 3. I thought it was either going to be the left uppercut as he was coming in, or it was going to be the swooping left. But in saying that, I want to touch on the people, these idiots that fucking have comments on Brock Jarvis who have never been in the ring or have never faced contact sports, bagging him out. And this, it can happen in boxing. You know what I mean? Some of the greatest fights we've ever seen, Zab Judah versus Costa Zoo was over very early. You know,
mate, Joe Lewis got knocked out by Max Mellon, mate, and come back. He's the greatest of all time. So, look,
exactly.
It can happen in boxing. Let me jump in for a second. Most people, look, it's like this. If you haven't fought, then shut your mouth. Don't even talk about any fighter. If you have not fought at a good level, such as myself and Lynden, shut your mouth. Don't talk about this game. Don't bag a fighter unless you've been in there amateur pro. Shut your fucking mouth, okay? Brock Jarvis is a great young man and a champion. I spoke to him yesterday. He'll bounce back from this, and congratulations to Liam Paro. Anyone that bags Brock Jarvis, you're a fucking peanut, an absolute peanut. And I dare you to do it around Jeff Fennick because you get your head caved in.
All right, well, let's move on to the next talking point. This is on that point. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. So in the lead, this is about the Brock Jarvis Liam Paro. Everyone's an expert afterwards, but there's a lot of people jumping on. Hang on, there's a lot of people jumping on Brock Jarvis. So, like you said, Nick, it's a mismatch. But leading up to the fight, a lot of fans out there, it was a 50-50 fight, and obviously Liam Paro made it look pretty easy. But as it says there, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
It is. It is a wonderful thing. And my opinion on it was that it was a mismatch. I said to Liam and Steve Rowlands in Vegas, it's a mismatch. I knew that Brock was going to come hard. However, there was 2 parts that I was disappointed. It was the people after it that they really tried to come in on Brock around that. You know what I mean? But in fairness, I saw a lot of people actually admitting that they were wrong, which is good. You know what I mean? No, I've got plenty of... I've got... Tassie was wrong. And I thought Kambosos was going to beat Haney. I was backing Kambosos in to do the game plan and come over the top of... We all get it wrong. But fucking don't sit there and fucking write your comments and stab it in. Like, I just thought... For Brock Jarvis, I thought that was... I was very... For those who know that was sitting down there, I was very animated after the fight. And I let people know it was a mismatch. I was screaming and yelling around the result. But then about 3 hours later, when I arrived back in Melbourne, for those who don't know, it was kind of amazing what I did. I went
tell us what you did.
The weigh-in. I went from the weigh-in in Melbourne, cut digital to 3 o'clock, had Tassie stuff coming through, my other 3 correspondents, then went up, flew, and then I walked into this arena and like, Nunan, you're not meant to be here. You're meant to be with Kambosos. But I had to be there for Liam and for the event. And then the next morning, I'm on the plane and I'm on the Qantas Wi-Fi and I'm thinking all these people hammering Brock. I'm like, nah, this is not... I didn't have an opinion on it then. And then we got through the Kambosos fight, and then that night I just, I put something up the last 2 days for Brock because, look, it's a hard thing. And, you know what I mean? And not trying to suck up Jeff Fennick's ass, but I actually spoke to Jeff Fennick on Sunday night, and he was fucking fantastic, Jeff Fennick. And he rang me for 2 reasons. He rang me about the Kambosos loss and told me what a warrior and how George Kambosos is one of the best fighters we've ever had in Warriors. I switched the conversation to see how Brock was, and he was absolutely gutted. Kayla and him and Brock were in the house, and I told him my thoughts on the Brock Jarvis thing, and we put that to rest. And then Jeff actually rang the next day as well, when Jeff was actually on Fox Sports at 9:30 praising Kambosos again as well. And look, you can say what you want about Jeff Fennick. Everyone's had different run-ins with him and different opinions and shared different experiences with him. But, mate, he's one of our greatest fighters of all time. 2, he's one of our toughest of all time. And 3, he's a former fucking multiple world champion who defended his world titles. So, and he got it wrong as well. He thought that Brock was going to absolutely be far too strong. Well, he got it wrong as well, so we can all get it wrong.
Yeah. Tassie, apart from the fans that love laying the boots in, we get that every single time, to the fight itself, even though I think we all tipped Liam to win. I tipped him to win, but certainly not by early round knockout, I can tell. I picked him to win on points.
I tipped Brock.
Yeah. Oh, did you? So, what did you think of do you think that the occasion, all Liam's skill set aside, do you think the occasion sort of got to Brock because he come out there and it was just pretty much just let's just throw down?
A couple of people ringside told me they thought he was going to win until they seen him get in the ring, and they see he looked
dry,
taking deep breaths. But it's all experience, mate. I mean, look, this kid's got a lot to carry on his shoulders, and Eddie Hearn put the two guys together. You know, he wanted a good fight to launch match for him, but at the end of the day, someone's eye was going to go. But look, mate, so what? He lost the fight. He lost the fight.
Yep.
I mean, many fighters lost fights back in the day. You know, it's not the end of it. Doesn't mean he can't fight. Doesn't mean he's not at that level. He is, and he will bounce back. So he lost the fight. So what?
Yeah. And Nick, look, people forget he's only a young kid as well, very inexperienced. I know he's had 21 fights, whatever it is now, but he's still a very inexperienced kid at that, of any type of level. I know he had the American fight, but Liam Paro is obviously a big step up. But this mentality of, if you lose a fight, it's all over, and that's it. That's, he's overrated, and that's it. They don't realise, and I'm sure Jeff will be in his ear about this as well. Hey, it's a loss, but use it as a learning experience rather than let it get you down for the rest of your career.
Exactly, and I think Brock will come back. I think it's an opportunity, Tassie, and I think you'll back me on this, and this is not knocking Jeff as a trainer, but it's the same as what Chris Backus, Jim Kambosos, and George will sit down and discuss privately of what they need to do. I feel that Jeff and Brock will definitely sit down and have a talk about stylistically and fundamentally where they can improve Brock if they had to fight a fighter like that again, you know what I mean? And that's why I had my opinion on it, that if Brock did fight that style that he was going to fight, that come forward, no. At that weight with the strength. Look, and I thought, shout out to Brock, he made the weight quite comfortably. But I picked up when he walked into the ring and he came over to our front of the ropes, he sort of did those deep breaths, and then he went back over the other side and he sort of looked around. I thought, I don't think he wants to. It's not that he doesn't want to be here, but I don't think he knows what it was. It was all new to him. When Liam come out, and I was saying this to Alfie today, Liam come out with a big smile. He walked around the ring. It was his show, and quite in that first round for about 30 seconds when they were clinching, Liam was too strong for him as well. And that was the work that Steve Rowlands and that put over there. But I think for Brock, rebuild, come back, stylistically and fundamentally change some things if they're going to fight another fighter like him, and they'll be back.
When does he get a title shot, do you think?
Look, that's a tricky one. The Cattrall
and is he ready for one?
Yeah, well, I'd like to see Liam probably have another fight, then get the world title. There's some different sanctioning. There's even some phone calls that have been made today. There's some potentially other sanctioning bodies that I think Liam will get ranked in, where he might even get a world title shot in before he might get one in the WBO. The Taylor Cattrall thing's a hard thing. It's gone on for far too long. I'm not having a go at the WBO here, but it should have been sorted out. But they need to sort that out. If Taylor's going to go up, whatever he's going to do might create a vacant world title. But I would say that Liam Paro will fight for a world title next year, whether it's in the first half or the second half.
Well, good to see Tassie's finally made it home. That's a long drive for you there, I've got to say, mate. That's over an hour drive. Good to see you home nice and safely, though, mate. I want to ask you about the undercard. Dempsey McKean, he stopped Patrick Corte in 3 rounds. What did you make of it?
Did what he had to do.
Awkward.
Yeah, I thought he did what he did.
Who are you asking, me or Nunan?
Whoever. You can go if
You
you
go,
want,
Taz.
Tassie. Or Nick, whatever. Yep.
No, I feel like Nick's hogging all the questions, and I'm not getting much.
Well, you go ahead,
thrown
Tassie.
out.
You go ahead.
No, go, Taz.
You know, if you want me to put my princess crown on and be a bit of a
A bit of a diva.
Mate, look, the guy was an awkward guy. You know, he probably made, he was an awkward guy to fight, but Dempsey got him out of there. Mousy Jacobs and Sky.
Yeah.
I will get to it. Yeah. Sky lacks aggression. I mean, she can box beautifully, but I mean, she really should have stepped her foot on the gas to try and get Mousy out of the credit of Mouse for getting up for the knockdown and showing all heart. But Sky's going to be a legit, world champion one. She needs to, you got to have a little bit more aggression than what she does. But look, that was an interesting one.
Nick, so on Dempsey McKean, one, what did you think of his performance? And two, is he the best heavyweight in Australia?
I think he did the other night what he needed to do, and that was to make a statement. Patrick Corte was very, very awkward. And, look, he was doing a couple of dirty things in the ring. There was a couple of headbutts, and as heavyweights do, and Dempsey weathered the storm. But I think Dempsey's improved a lot compared to his last fight with Bracamonte and then the one before that. I still think Dempsey, it's a tricky one. I think Dempsey, going off his big win over Jonathan Rice, I haven't seen the other heavyweights have a big win like Dempsey has over Jonathan Rice. Now, I'd like to see Justice Honey in with a Jonathan Rice. I'd like to see Justice Honey in with, look, Bracamonte, I think he boxed his ears off. But Jonathan Rice is one that I can compare him to with Dempsey, because Dempsey beat Jonathan Rice, and Jonathan Rice has actually had some good wins after it. So, look, I think Dempsey is, but I'm not saying that Justice Honey ain't either. It's a tricky one there. I'd have to go Honey or Dempsey on that one. And I should probably answer that when Honey faces some better opponents. And I think we'll find out what Honey does to Latali on November the 4th when he fights Latali.
Yeah.
He might get him out early where Dempsey couldn't get him out early. And we'll have to stay tuned for that. But I definitely do believe they're the two best. But they're on different courses, Lynden. You know what I mean? Dempsey's on a different course and Justice is on a different course. Technically, I think Justice Honey's a lot better. Dempsey, I think, is very, very, very tough and very, very strong. So, look, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, it is. Tassie, who do you back as the number one heavyweight, McKean or Honey?
What was that, Lynden?
Who's your pick, Honey or McKean? Honey or McKean, who wins?
Honey.
Honey? Yeah, I tend to agree. From what I saw the other night, I mean, it was really hard for McKean because Corte, he was just there to spoil and hang on and do whatever he could to just, I think, the last. It wasn't the ideal opponent, but I just think, to me, Honey is a class above, and I think he'll end up as the better heavyweight. But I suppose time will tell. Speaking of really good fighters on the undercard, Matillo Tapia defeats Abdullah Mayweather over 10 rounds. It was a good performance.
Who's the guy next to him?
So you go ahead, Tassie.
Who's the guy next to him?
Good looking bloke next to him, Michael Tamura.
Is that Messi, the famous football soccer player?
It looks like him. Does look like him.
Mate, I like Matillo Tapia. I have done
So do I.
For a long time. He fought a good opponent too, and the guy done a good job to go the distance. But I like Matillo. He's a guy. He's going to be a top 10 pound for pound Australian eventually. I think he's a really good guy. Yeah, he's only going to get better. He's still young. He's strong. Spars Tim Tszyu a lot, and I've got a lot of time. I'm really looking forward to seeing how far this young man can develop.
What were your thoughts, Nick?
I agree with Tassie. I think he's one in Australia that could go all the way at super middleweight. I think he's clearly the best super middleweight in the country. He's a phenomenal boxer, and I think he can brawl too. the tougher the fight gets. Abdul Mayweather is a very, very tough guy. But I want to shout out to Abdul Mayweather because I think he tore his bicep in the second round.
Oh, wow.
That hung in tough. But look, that was always going to be a tough fight. But Tapia, he reigns supreme. And, he boxes very beautifully off the front foot, the way he transfers his weight. Beautiful left uppercut and all that sort of stuff. So he's got a lot of artillery, and I think he'll go a long way. What I'd like to see from Mike Altamura and the guys now is, he gradually gets some bigger fights. He's got that Mexican heritage there, and I know Mike's got a lot of connections around the world, so very keen to see what his 2023 is all about. And from a media point of view, is really getting behind him, you know what I mean? Because Australian boxing is just on an absolute high at the moment, and there's more to it than George Kambosos, Tim Tszyu, and Justice Honey, and Ebony Bridges and these guys and girls. So Tapia's right up there with the Maloneys, and there's just so many of them.
Well, Tassie touched on it before, but I'll let you comment on this one too. Sky Nicholson dominated Christina Jacobs to win the Commonwealth title. I thought it was a workmanlike performance from Sky. I think she's got all the ability in the world. Christina Jacobs, obviously a really, really tough fighter as well. Obviously had a version of the world title as well, so no slouch. But I thought she did what she had to do. But I just get the feeling she's just got to maybe step it up a little bit or improve in a few areas if she's going to be successful at world level, even though I do think she's a potential world champion.
What do you think, Taz?
100% she does. I mean, look, Mousy was game, but I mean, Sky only was in the one gear the whole time, mate. I'm not saying you got to knock everyone out, but she didn't really try to mount any sort of offense. The knockdown was just a flush. I wasn't really impressed with her, mate, at all.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I've just got a quick one there. Should McKean Brown be revisited? That'd be an interesting one. I think yes. That's the question's coming through. I like our same division fighters on different courses to hopefully win belts before domestic unifications. Yep. Sorry, just to backtrack a bit there, guys. I reckon Big J, since Lucas can't fight in UK no more. Yeah. And Big Daddy is up for it for sure. Far win gave him some validation. So, yeah, some potential big fights there. So, sorry, go ahead there. Nick, is Sky Nicholson the next big thing? I'd love to see with Beck Hawker down the track. How good a fight would that be?
I think it'd be fantastic. I've got to give praise to Sky and to Mousy. Like, Sky tried to knock Mousy out early a couple of times in rounds 2, round 3. She did. She loaded up on her. However, I think when she hit her a couple of times, Mousy being so tough, she knew that she was just going to have to box this girl. Look, she did what she had to do to win. People can say it was a boring fight. Look, I'm not going to comment and say it was a boring fight. Stylistically, it was quite good at some times in the fight. But Sky sort of just got in front. But there was a couple of times over in my corner, actually, where I saw Sky load up and she couldn't hurt her. And I don't know, you guys have been in the ring where you've hit blokes, really, really hard early in the fight. Shit, I'm just going to have to get through this fight on points. I don't know what that feeling's like. So I think Sky was one of those ones through 3 and 4. Yeah, rounds 3 and 4 and 5. The corner was just a box to box, maybe tire her out. And look, she's still got that amateur style. She still keeps her hands down far too low for me as well. Going up against that higher level, she's going to get caught out with that. But I think her and her team will make the adjustments, hopefully, that she can make if she's going to go up in standard. I think the Beck Hawker fight would be an absolute cracker. And I think Beck Hawker would be a big person there, big in the ring, strong, whether she could cut Sky off. Sky loves flicking off the angles. If you study her very well, I'm sure some opponents could try and do it. But in saying that, she does it very well when she's in there and she varies it up a bit. But I think a lot of...
Yep, sorry. I kept sort of yelling at the TV, make her move to her left, because Skies was moving to her right. She was jabbing, she was hooking, just stepping off, making it so easy for her. I kept saying, make her move the other way. Takes out 2 of her big 3 weapons. Obviously, the left is still there, but her main weapons is that jab and the right hook, and she just let her get away with the whole fight. And if you let a good fighter get away with it, it's going to keep doing it. They're going to win every round. So, anyway.
Yeah, well, it was... Yeah, well, look, no comment.
No comment. Okay. One thing I need to comment, Tassie. This is a couple of guys that you know very well. The fight has been officially signed. It is Paul Fleming and Bilal.
Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. The fight's in jeopardy. The fight might not be happening.
Is that because of what happened yesterday?
Not sure. He's got a phone call this afternoon. So it might not be happening.
Okay, well, Dean Lonergan's not going to be happy about that since he would have spent a lot of money for the press conference and that yesterday. But
I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just saying it might not happen.
Well, there you go. You heard it first here, guys.
You want me to confirm it in one text message?
Hey, we're live. You may as well.
1 second. Hang on, 1 second.
All right, Nick. If it does happen, how do you see it playing out? Because the first round obviously was played out at the press conference yesterday. I couldn't believe that Billy Dibb actually walked down to the front, and I thought it was going to be on right there and then.
I saw Billy come up. I don't know why Billy was doing that, but I think it's a good fight. I think it's a long range, skillful boxer against another good boxer that likes to come forward. I like Bilal Dibb. I've got to admit it. I like the way he fights. I think he's got a bit of dog in him. But Fleming's got dog in him too. You saw it against Jackson, England. You've seen him in other fights. So I think it's a tremendous fight. Stylistically, this is a fight that could be really red hot right from the first couple of rounds. But let's just see if it happens.
All right, he's back. Is it happening or not, Tassie?
Well, I'll wait till the person I just messaged who would know more than...
All right, well, hopefully by the end of the show we might know something.
Look, it's a good fight. I'm friends with both guys. They both were teammates. They both were trained by my brother Billy Hussein. He trained Flemo most of his pro career. And it is true. Yeah, might not be happening. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's just move on.
You've heard that too, Taz, have
you? Yeah. No, I just got the message confirmed from someone.
Okay.
In the night.
All right. Well, there you go. That's why you watch live, I suppose, isn't it?
1 second. Hang on.
All right,
that's a Tassie Brown exclusive.
There you go, Tassie Brown exclusive. Fleming Dibb may not be happening. So there you go. It pays to be in the know.
But let me say something. Both guys are great guys. They were friends and teammates. There was a bit of beef now, but look, I got a lot of time for Paul Fleming. He was there for me for a very tough time in my life years ago. Bilal Dibb's a good friend of mine. Billy Dibb's a great friend of mine. The Body Punch team and my family, obviously. And so, look, I'm not going to say too much. May the best man win if they do fight. But outside the ring, they're both really good people. That's all I'm going to say.
I got a lot of
really
time for
people.
Bilal Dibb. And one thing about Bilal Dibb, he's straight down the line too. There's no bullshit with him. He doesn't put on a face. If he thinks something about you and that, he tells you straight to your face. He's good. I like it. And so is Flemo.
Yeah.
Good fight.
And look, I'm sure if it does happen afterwards, there'll be handshakes all round. You know, they know they've got to build it up and all the rest of it. But I'm sure that they'll bury the hatchet afterwards. There's always a little bit of that goes on, and especially at the first press conference. All right, we'll move on, guys. Just quickly, I want to mention the last bit of Aussie news we've got here. Show announced, obviously, is another one. Is Ace Boxing's got a show on December 3rd on the Gold Coast. So good to see plenty of girls on there as well as love Vegas Larfield. Great young talent, isn't he, Nick?
Oh, yeah.
He is, mate. I know his dad at Larfield, is it?
Oh, okay, yep.
Yeah, they're good. He's a good boy, mate. And Beck Hawker, who I promoted before. Look, mate, Anza Carlo, one of the best there is, mate, as Nunan knows. He just keeps doing these shows, and without guys like Anza Carlo, the backbone of Australian boxing wouldn't be happening.
Yep.
And he's in the air right now, Tassie. He's in the air heading off to Puerto Rico to the WBO World Boxing Convention. He's over there. He's got a couple of big meetings over the next couple of days, so stay tuned for some big news. But this is another quality event. Vegas Larfield, who I've got massive raps on, he's another one that's coming up through the ranks that could be in 5 years at the top and could even be at the pinnacle. Beck Hawker defending her title against Chris Brown. Luke Medini, who I think's one of the rare, flamboyant, he's got that X factor kind of boxer. And then Jazzy Parr and Nisela Costello running it back for an interim world title. So Jazzy Parr and Costello will be an absolute cracker. They fought the first time. And there's plenty of other fights that will be named on that December the 3rd. So, no, looking forward to that show on the Gold Coast. Tassie, you should come up for that one. It'll be good. Good venue too.
What date is it?
December 3rd.
December the 3rd.
See how we go, mate. I'm just worried about my show November 12th. That's all I'm looking at the moment, mate. Nothing else exists at the moment.
All right, guys, let's just get on to a couple of quick things. We've been going for a while already, so we'll just quickly go over the weekend's results. Probably the main fights were Clarissa Shields defeated Savannah Marshall to unify the world middleweight title. I must admit I've only sort of seen highlights so for Nick, but I actually thought Marshall might win, but Shields did a great job to get to unify the belts in a pretty, I think it was a unanimous decision in the end.
Yeah, I think, look, Savannah Marshall didn't really change the game plan too much. She was good in for periods of the fight, but Clarissa was too strong and too boxing. And for those who know boxing, Clarissa was making her miss a hell of a lot. You know what I mean? And she wasn't scoring Marshall, and she was getting frustrated. No, it was a good victory. Good victory to Shields.
And Tassie, I doubt you would have seen it. I think you worked the night before, plus went straight to the fight. So I'm assuming you haven't seen it yet.
Nah, mate, as I said, I finished work at 3 a.m. Was at Rod Laver at 8 a.m, mate, so that was a bit of a write-off for me. But I'm happy for Clarissa Shields. I was hoping she'd win. She's a legend of women's boxing. And the guy over and doing it in the girls' backyard, well done to her. Our friend Nick trains her. GT
the Great.
Yeah, GG the Great, who's Floyd's trainer, trains Clarissa. We talk on Instagram. So I'm very happy.
And the other fight on the weekend, not sure how much we can go over this one. Deontay Wilder destroys Robert Hellenius in first round. Nick, now, just looking at the look, I know Wilder is a massive puncher, but I got to say, knowing a little bit, about the mechanics of how to punch, I'm a little bit dubious about how this all went down. What do you think?
I throw a very good overhand left and it comes through very fast, but I think I could have, you got to be careful because I haven't been in there professionally, but I don't know. That was suspect, it was a bit different.
I agree. Well,
I don't know. It was.
When you've got your head up, your eyes closed, you land it with this part of the hand, and your arm only travels about this far. Even though he's a massive puncher, he went down like he was dead. I don't know, Tassie. Did you see any highlights of it? To me, it just looked like two mates. There's a bit of agreement going there, and let's just move on.
Yeah, I think it happened before once with a Wilder fight where a bloke, it wasn't much. Yeah, so I don't know. I hope not.
Look, sometimes there's, as you know, you guys know, there's gentlemen's agreements that are made for different fights. Maybe not fixes or whatever, but look, as I said, I know Wilder is a massive puncher, but the fact he was leaning back, his eyes were closed, he landed with the inside of the glove, and it only travelled like about that far, and he went down like he'd been shot. Anyway, enough said of that one. To answer your question, to go back a bit there, Nick, you might know about this quality boxing card. Who's back fighting? I think it's the American. I'll just go back.
Fighting Teresa Brown.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she's
good fight, tough fight.
Yeah, will be American. Yep. Just quickly, guys, before we move on to just two more talking points and we're done. Plant Durrell, Tassie, did you see a little bit of it? What did you make of it?
Yeah, mate, massive knockout. A real statement there by Plant. Went to the body and come up with a hook. I didn't like the antics after it, the dig in the grave. I think that shouldn't be done. I don't like it. I used to be pumped up after I won as well, but I wouldn't do that. That's a bit bad, especially when you don't know how the guy's condition is.
Yeah.
But a great knockout win. But yeah, let's leave that stuff. I don't like that shit.
Yeah, no, I'm with you with that. And look, I suppose the only defence I got for Plant is that, a big knockout. He's full of adrenaline and everything else. I'm sure he'd regret it as well. But at the time, things that happened. But apart from that, Nick, mate, it was a great knockout. I think it was a left hook to the body followed by a left hook to the head. It was just beautiful.
Yeah, the old 1-2 and up and over. It was a crisp punch. He's a good fighter, Caleb Plant. He's one of the best we've seen at super middleweight in a long time. You know what I mean? Like we were saying before, Brock Jarvis having one loss and then Caleb Plant having his first loss against Canelo. Some people even say that he was winning the fight. So, Look, this fight was a bit of a tick for tat early on. I did watch it, parts of it. And then obviously Caleb Plant got over him. And then I think Caleb Plant being so much seasoned the last probably couple of years was just too good for Anthony Durrell.
Yeah, he was. I don't think he's going to get a rematch with Canelo. I wouldn't have thought. I mean, Canelo's busy for the next year or two, you'd think. Just a couple of talking points. Sorry, Tassie, you want to comment?
No way Canelo's going to fight.
Yeah.
Why would he?
Well, I was talking about a rematch plan, but yeah, I don't think it was close enough or exciting enough to get another shot. Let's get a couple of talk.
I prefer to see Nick Nunan fight Peter Maniatis, mate.
Hey, that could be one of the next big celebrity fights up there. What do you reckon?
I love Pete. I never want to hit Pete.
Angel.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
Pete's, I think his fights are on YouTube, so check him out. He's a beast. Let's get on to talking point number 3 there, guys, before we go. Now, Tassie, Wilder versus Joshua or Fury versus Usyk? Which fight's the bigger fight? Well, actually, I think we know Fury's and Usyk's the bigger fight, but is that a fact, and which one's going to be better?
Wilder versus Joshua is a better fight for a fan.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And Fury Usyk's obviously be for the undisputed title, so it's the bigger fight. But I think Wilder Joshua would have the bigger, reaction from fans or the appeal. Nick, what do you reckon of? What do you make of Tyson Fury signing to fight Derek Chisora for a third time? Surely not.
I think it's just all waffle. I think what Tyson's doing is he's just throwing fishing lines out and just trying to wind Eddie up. He's trying to wind Anthony Joshua up. I actually think the next fight for Wilder will be against Andy Ruiz, and I don't think it's an easy fight.
Yeah.
That's the one that I think.
Yeah.
I look at it like this. I think Joshua will go a certain way with a couple of opponents. One, I think he'll fight in either Dubai, Japan. Look, they've spoken about McKean. I don't know about that either. Where I think Wilder will go down the other way. The PVC was Ruiz, and then maybe circle back to Wilder versus Joshua. Fury has the right just to sit back out of it, to be honest, stay active in the gyms and doing what he's doing and spar every now and then. And look, he doesn't need to, I don't think he needs to fight any of them there, Fury. I think Fury would demolish Joshua. And I think if he fought Wilder again, I keep saying this to some of my mates, it just feels like it's going to be Wilder and Fury again one day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, and if Wilder fought Joshua and knocks Joshua out, and then he somehow fights Usyk, and then say if he knocked Usyk out, what is the boxing fans going to say? Well, they're going to go around for the 4th time.
Yeah. We see there, Fury versus Chisora.
I hope not.
See there, Rowan, Fury versus Chisora just got announced during this live. Well, there you go, Dubois on the undercard. So that's... Who's Dubois fighting, Rowan? Is it going to be Lucas Brown? I know there's talk about that. I know there
just been announced, mate. There
Sorry.
you go. Well,
yeah.
Fury Chisora's just been announced.
Okay, there you go. It's, again, the beauty of doing live shows. Chisora said he got no contract yet, day before yesterday. And we've lost Tassie. That's all right. I'm sure we'll be back. Fury,
Come on,
Usyk.
Tassie.
Get better internet there, Tassie. Get off the dodo. Get onto some Telstra or Optus or something. It's all right. We're almost done anyway. Massive size difference. Yeah, there is. Mate, I've got one last one before I'll let you go. Rematch. This is a talking point. Oh, there's Tassie coming back in. I've got him back,
Come on,
I think.
Taz, bring him in.
There he is. He's back. All right.
Someone called me. Sorry.
It's all good, mate. Just almost
Come on,
done.
Tassie.
I've just got the last one. Oh, hang on.
Levels.
All right, last one. Nick, rematch clauses should be scrapped. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I know it worked in George's favour, but when champions sometimes fight once a year, the backlog is just too long, and some fighters just wait years and just never get a shot.
Should they be scrapped? No, I don't
Okay.
think they should be. I think they're in there for... Look, they're obviously there for a reason, and shout out to Bill and Devin Haney, who stayed committed to their contract. George gave them a shot. George and Jim said, come on, mate, stick to the contract. Let's do the rematch. For those who don't know, George might not have even wanted to put a rematch in there. But once the contract's in there, it's signed, it has to go through.
Well, Tassie, you know about this as well. I think Glenn Jennings was interviewed the other day, and he actually said the Tim Tszyu and Charlo fight, there's no rematch clause in that for one of those exact reasons.
There's no rematch in that.
Yeah, but wouldn't you think that Charlo would say, well, I'm the champion, I want that rematch clause if I'm going to give you the shot?
What do you think, Tassie, on that?
Well, you think so. He must be that super confident that he won't need one, which I'm happy about because Tim's going to flog him. But I mean, look, you think he would want that, of course. You think it'd just be a bit of a safety blanket, so to speak,
Yeah, but do you agree, Nick, that as a rule, I know it's hard because sometimes it's a negotiation at the end of the day. It's a contract, it's a business deal between two businessmen, I suppose you call them. But as I said, like when you've got, like, say, Charlo, for instance, a guy that does fight once a year, he's got 4 belts tied up. Bloody hard to get a look in if you're if you're not right up the pecking order.
Look, it's an interesting one. There's obviously a reason on the Charlo side why they haven't put one in, but you should never, ever, ever underestimate a fighter. You know what I mean? Like I said before, there was talk that George wasn't going to put one in for Haney. You know what I mean? He would have lost the first one, and then, the first fight wasn't controversial, so then you got to go to market with another plan, and then we got a better second fight from that. But, no, to answer your question, it's up to the teams. As Tassie's close with Glenn Jennings. Glenn Jennings was probably shocked that they didn't put one in. It's an interesting point, that, on how some fights don't have them in there.
Yeah, I just thought it's...
Oh, sorry. Yeah, as MAW just said, because he's a mandatory. Yeah, Tim Tszyu's a mandatory, isn't he?
Yeah. For the WBO he is, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not required.
Okay, so there's no rematch clause. So how did it work with... All right, so when George fought Lopez, there's obviously no rematch clause, obviously because he didn't think George would beat him anyway, but George was IBF number 1 at the time, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, so that was a tricky one. So with that, Teo was the world champion in the IBF.
Yep.
It can move so many different ways. When Teo was number 1 with the IBF, I actually thought he was going to drop the belt off the IBF and not fight his mandatory. Selby and Kambosos fought to take the number 1 spot, become mandatory.
Yep.
And then Teo took his mandatory in the IBF. There's no rematch required for that, right?
Okay.
WBC, the WBA, and the WBO, WBC, WBA, WBO, they came over as well. So there's no rematch for any of it with the IBF, with the WBO. So I was off my game then. So with Tszyu, it's the same with the WBO. There's not one there with the WBO either. Okay.
Yeah, I just thought, Tassie, that, as I said, I know there's so many intangibles involved, but just the champions that we talk about at the once-a-year fighters, especially in Charlo's case, having all 4 belts, it just ties it up for a long, long time.
100%. Yeah, it does. 100%. Especially when they're so inactive, like a Gary Russell and a Charlo's. They fight once a year. Most of the Al Heyman PBC fighters, well, I love Al Heyman, but I mean, they fight once a year.
Yeah, so anyway, I suppose there's again, it's a business and there's contracts and negotiations. I understand the way it works, but it's an interesting one. I just hate seeing fighters sit on the shelf and doing the hard work and just not getting opportunities, but that's the business we're in.
Look, it is, and the business. You guys know it better than me. You know, I mean, the business side to this is a very, very crucial part in boxing. Some of it I don't like when I hear about it, but the one for Tszyu is it's a tricky one, and I think we go back to Mayweather Medina. So Mayweather Medina was one where I don't think there was a rematch clause in it, but Floyd gave him a rematch.
Different rules for someone like Floyd, though.
How funny is that one? There was no rematch clause in it, but Floyd gave him a rematch. Bizarre.
Yeah, it is. But anyway, plenty to come on board. We've got one more comment there from Andy. Mando's doesn't have to do rematch. Champ can only put in voluntary fights. Yeah, that's fair enough.
He's actually spot on.
And rematches hold up divisions. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to get at, James. So there's arguments either side. But anyway, all right, boys. Well, that's it for tonight. It's been a really good episode. We've had a really good response from everyone out there. Appreciate you making the time, guys.
Where are you, Peter? Where are you, Peter? I'm coming for you, Peter. Peter Mediatis.
And Tassie, a big shout out to you, Tassie, last week. So we did the numbers today in my little compound here on the Gold Coast at Australian Boxing Central. Nunanboy Promotions, Fight Height were the #1 channels that covered that event, did the biggest views into the most countries. We reached into 45 countries for that fight, which was absolutely fantastic, which was great.
Wow.
Some of Tassie's videos were massive, and the ones that we got out the back, Tassie, after it were, there's a couple there up around the 300-400K mark, which really, you go outside the boxing perimeter of digital in Australia. For those who don't know, when we really hit our heights with digital reach in the country, it's around about 80, 90 to 100,000 people. When you start stepping up around the 350 to 400,000 marks and compiling over 4.5 million views in a week, which is massive. So shout out to you, Tassie, for being a part of that, and for those my teams with Warren, Josh, and obviously Southside Slick that was down there as well. So it was good.
Yeah, done a great job.
Thanks, East boys. I've got to bounce.
All right, guys. Thanks again, and we'll hope to see you soon again, Nick. And thanks everyone for joining in the live. Thanks, guys.
See you guys. Bye.